All right, so we're finally getting onto the coding part or the language part of databases, and this is all done through a language called SQL, which is the generic standard for databases. Keep in mind when you choose a database to use, it'll probably be a bit different and it'll have different features. But to start off, there's two different aspects to SQL. There's the data definition part, which is describing the structure or how the data looks in the table, and then there's the data manipulation part, which asks questions about the data. We'll be discussing the data definition for now. First up, we're going to talk about relations. There are three different types of relations. First one is stored relations, which are called tables. These are what we've kind of been talking about, and they're hard-coded, declared, and stored inside of the database. Then there's temporary tables, which are made and used for processing a SQL query. When you execute a query, there may need to be a temporary table made to help the process, and then these are just thrown away when it's done, so they're not stored. Then another one that's not stored is called views, which is for it's unlike the temporary tables. They are declared, but they're declared computationally, and we'll talk about this later. Maybe, I'm not really sure. Okay, so the first command we're going to learn in SQL is the create table command, and this is just used to declare the schema of a stored relation. And you also set the name, attributes, and data types of those attributes. Each attribute has to have a data type. So what are the data types? All right, so the first data type we will talk about is char n, which means that we want a string with exactly n characters. The next one in relation to that is varchar n, which means we want a string with up to n characters. So what does that mean? Well, say for example I have n equals 5 and I enter the word cup. In char n, I would have CUP space space. The two spaces are padding because it has to be 5 characters. Opposed to varchar n, which if I enter cup, then I'll just have 3 characters because it's up to n characters. Then we have bits n, which just mean n bits in length, and then also bits varying, which means up to n bits. This is the same as char and varchar, but just with a stupid name. And then there's boolean, which we all know is just true and false, right? Well, no, because there's also unknown. So just be mindful when you're doing Boolean expressions. Int and integer is exactly what you'd expect, the same as in C, as well as short int, which is just using less bits to express a number. This is also the same for float or real, as well as double precision to get those more precise numbers. Then moving on to something that's not in C, we have decimal with the parameters n and d, where n is the number of digits and d is the number of digits to the right of the decimal. So as an example, if we have decimal with 4, 2, then we can store the number 12.34 because we have 34 to the right of the decimal, which is 2, and 1234 as the number of digits. There's also numeric, which is kind of like decimal, but it's different for every database, so we're not going to talk about that. Date and time can also be different per database, but the generic way is to have it go year, month, and then day, and that goes by 4 numbers hyphen 2 numbers hyphen 2 numbers. And then off of that, time is kind of the same format, except you're going to use a colon, and it's going to be for hour, minute, second, and then fraction of a second. Keep in mind, hours are typically done on a 24-hour scale, so military time.